I was mentioning, and I have been mentioning, how everyone knows capital elites control poor white trash by making them look at billionaires like Trump and Elon Musk and think they represent them. But nobody knows how they control minorities by attacking their manhood, their concept of being an equal human to them. Plot after plot, anytime there's a group of minority men, they orient them to attacking women and children. Um, in culture, I mentioned this. After the '90s, hip hop became 100% about slapping bitches around, being a pimp. Your ire is focused on women, maybe other men in your community. Never the white man, never the system. You never heard that. None of these big hip hop artists. And that was alongside the prison industrial complex and known conspiracy theories that while making these cultural icons, they would then sell to black kids. They were raping them and drugging them. So it's like this schizophrenic contradiction. Like, I attack women, I am a woman, I'm owned by them, brainwashing them not to even conceptualize themselves as equal men, right? And this dovetails into methods of control in the South during slavery. Everyone focuses on the N word, the hard R, but nobody mentions a very effective method the slave owner used was boy. It's possibly even more effective in the sense, the N word has kind of become redefined as like a greeting amongst black people in ways in certain contexts. But boy has never ever stopped being a dehumanizing slur, ever, right? So anytime anyone calls you boy, like a slave owner would do, it's insulting. They were not able to redefine that. And you can even see this like in the prison system, which is very much related to Southern slavery, oppression, poverty, um, encouraging criminality, especially in the '90s with the prison industrial complex and cultural icons sold to black kids. In prison, um, males who are assigned the inferior female role through rape are called boys, the way slave owners called black men, right? Like at the time when slave owners were like, boy, what he was saying is, I own all this shit. I'm your master. I own the women. I own the children like a boy. And since you're not a woman, you're a boy. You're my child. You're my property, like a dog or something I own. Boy, right? And I would say this slur was possibly even more effective than the N word, which they were able to redefine as like not insulting in context, whereas boy has retained like, oh, I'm not a man. And if you think about it, the breakdown of what boy is saying is a lot more insulting than the N word, which is like a cruel, or it's like a crude word for black. It's a made up Southern word to dehumanize black people based on like Latin cultures where it's related to the word for black, and they just started calling them inners, right? So you can see how you can remake that the way like gay people have started remaking queer into not seriously offensive. Um, in the way queer is similar, like traditionally used by straights to call you a freak, you're strange, you're queer, you're a fucking queer. But they've been able to do like an N-word transfer, like, yeah, I am queer. I'm not straight. I am different. And they've reframed that into like it's not necessarily bad to be called queer, right? And if you talk to like gays of an older generation, they don't like this thing where the Zoomers are like, we're queer, because they're of an era where it was only used to dehumanize. And the N word is also similar, although it's been a few more decades out, where older black people who were called that, they didn't like the kids being like, "What's up, my Enna?" Like, because for them it's like, no, that's a really bad. That's only bad, and they couldn't adjust to the new vernacular of the youth. Queer is going through a similar thing now. or gays who are like 50 or older, they don't like this like I'm queer thing that young kids where they were less exposed to being called queer in a dehumanizing way don't mind it and they're like reframing it as it's just yeah I am queer, I am different, I am gay, I am trans. It's true. And I'm gonna reclaim that I am queer, it's fine. Boy was never able to make that because they're literally telling you you're not an equal man, you know? In a way, queer and N word doesn't tell you that. It's identifying a characteristic in a crude way, but it's not saying you are an inferior man. That's what boy is saying to you over and over again. You are my property, right? And the only place we see like a redefinition of the Southern slave owner with slur boy is in the prison system, mostly by the descendants of slaves to men they have raped and designated as females. They're boys. You're my boy, like a slave owner would say. And I think that no one talks about this. You never hear this. Like, all the attention on the N word, not the word boy, which was super effective for slave owners to break down their minds. Right? And we can see, like, there are contexts where you could say the N word and it's not meant to be a dehumanizing insult, but never was boy. And in fact, it transitioned to this prison system where now they're attacking other men as property and calling them boys the way slave owners used to do to black people, right? And I think the reason they don't ever talk about this or clock this, because that is how the capitalist elites have chosen to control minority men. We all know they control white trash orcs by saying, I'm Elon Musk, I'm a Christian like you. I'm not going to say this or anything. I don't want to kill you. I don't want to like murder you in 2027 because you're worthless. Oh, I love you. White. I love white people. And he really hates everyone who's not rich. And Trump like, I love America. I love the flag. I love your stupid fucking Christian God. I love it so much. I'm not a weird Satanist who hates all human. I love flyover state redneck whites. I don't think you're disgusting trash. I don't view myself as an elite. I love you. We notice how they control them. Like, Trump gonna save me. I'm special. Just like me. You know everyone knows that it's very visible, right? But nobody knows or clocks the decades long process to passively erode at the progressive movement by little underhanded subconscious ways they get black people to engender their non-equal men, right? And a lot of this has been done through attacking the feminist movement first, designating women as inferior to men, and then making plot after plot after plot where black men are compared to women who are inferior, right? And you see this over and over in anything elite, like anything elite culture. Like, they first get you to accept women are inferior, property like, and stupid and weak, and they can only ever get through power serving men, white men especially, and black men are something. That's kind of like what the chips they have set, the propositions they have made. And that's why they construct so many CIA plots where minority men are attacking women. Minority men are not concerned with white men and the power story. They're concerned with getting at like little girls and um, Pakistani men in the UK. Are they mad about all the shit the British Empire has done to India? No, they're mad at some like 16-year-old white girl. And I am convinced of this. The grooming gangs are M16. And the grooming gang structure is so similar to ISIS, which we all know was M16. And we also know the Iraq War was Britain and America together. Who was in favor of that shit besides the UK at the time, right? And both the CIA and M16 made ISIS after they got their illegal war and regime change. And if you look at what the grooming gangs were like, how they operate in plain sight and nobody stopped them. And the excuse they tell you is that their wokeness, they were too scared to challenge it. Nah, they was doing a Charles Manson. If you dig into the details of Charles Manson, which was clearly made by the CIA, it was the same thing. Charles Manson was a smelly, inept criminal. He was a moron. He was a criminal brute. So he'd be breaking laws and he'd be in prison again. And this was revolving door, in and out of prison. Something happened after the MK Ultra visited Charles Manson's prison, where they were doing weird experiments on the prisoners, doing tests, analyzing personalities, that after that happened and he got out of jail, he became untouchable. They had orders, don't do shit to his ass. And when little cops would be like, oh, we caught this guy by himself, they're like, let him out. And why did they do this? They had a goal of using Charlie to be a cult member to make beatniks look like shit, because the beatnik culture was adjacent to leftism. That was the CIA's number one enemy at the time, still their number one enemy. But at the time, they was really fucking scared of Russia and China, and they knew the beatnik movement was a gateway to that, in the same way feminism and civil rights were. So what did they want to do? They wanted to make beatniks look like criminal degenerates. So what did they do? They found this criminal. She's a criminal who they probably exposed to MK Ultra testing and realized he's got a good personality to cult member, cult leader. And they decided to let him run amok and then retroactively say, this is what beatniks do. They take acid and they do crimes and they're brainwashed and they're fucked up and they're a threat to you, just like leftism is, right? And that's exactly why the media blew up the Manson story so much and kind of demonized him as a Satan character, is because everything they were associating Manson with was leftism and threats to the capitalist system. And when you look at the grooming gangs, they have a similar fucking pattern. Smelly, inept criminals. There's no fucking way to go with shit, right? And it seems like they're weirdly protected by the British police. And I'm sure the same thing was going on. It was going on for Manson, like, this guy's doing crimes, and the higher-ups were like, let him out. Don't touch him. Leave him alone. And the excuse they're giving you is like, because of wokeness, they were afraid to identify this majority Pakistani criminal syndicate targeting little girls. And I don't believe it for a second. I think, this is what I think the grooming gang thing was. It was one part, the British themselves, the UK was scared of radical Islamic sentiment in their midst, especially amongst Indians who they fucked up for years, Pakistani Indians. And they were afraid of a threat, that there could be some kind of threat to their society. So what did they do? They oriented them to raping kids and letting them get away with it. And then they also used the grooming gangs as a retroactive, like, you have to vote in Boris Johnson and Brexit because of the grooming gangs. Look what wokeness did. We are get this a menace of these brown criminals who are raping our kids, and Boris Johnson and Brexit will fix that. And I am convinced it was those two things. Like, they knew that there could be some like terrorist thing or some fucking undermined actions against their state, and they decide to nip that shit in the bud by getting them into these weird rape cults. And it was absolutely guided by M16, and the quality of it follows ISIS to a T. And we all know the CIA and M16 made ISIS, as soon as they got their illegal war in Iraq to do regime change, dismantle Al Qaeda. All of a sudden, this new terrorist group pops up that recruits online, especially again from the UK and Western societies, where they're afraid of these undesirable radicals who could upend their society. And they're focused on raping little girls who are Christian all over again. Not Israel, not Western male power, little girls. They're all high-fiving each other while, like, making 12-year-old cry. Again, you see this anytime the Western capital elite, who are white rich men, are scared of minorities coming to them. They invariably direct them to attack a woman and passively conceptualize themselves as white males are not even my competitor, not even on my radar. But attacking this woman is the peak of power I can get. And it leans into the prison slur of boy. Like you're either a man or you're a woman, and making them focus on think of themselves on playing as this inferior class woman. It's like the two bigotries reinforced. Women are inferior, minority men are inferior, and minority men's biggest anxiety becomes dominating women, especially white women. In a great mindfuck, you are not an equal playing field to white men, right? And I kind of went on a tangent, but I was saying how the Southern slave owner slur to control minds of boy was much more effective. They couldn't rehab that shit to this day in the prison system, which is very much related to oppression during slavery. They dominate each other by calling each other boy. And juxtaposing the oppression of female bodies with a boy, right? What? I don't think so. No, it's just whatever's in that bag. I have some bags in my car I can get. Bags. So you can put stuff in a bag. Um, I'll go to my car and bring the bags out in a second, okay? All right, I'll go to my car and get some bags. Yeah, so what was I saying? Um, it's not an organic phenomenon that a culture, a group of people who are men would orient themselves to only caring about abusing women. I do too. And the only group where traditionally this was not applied to is white people, where they didn't have anxiety, they didn't see themselves apart from the capital elites who are white men. And instead, the strategy they use is we're your leaders, we're pitching for you. And what's very interesting when you think about it, if we can see that this strategy of making men attack women and children is done to mind fuck them inferior. And like I said, there's a lot of good psychological data that violence against women and children goes up when males are insecure about their status. They reliable psychological data that I'm sure the CIA is aware of. And they also have data that's forced behaviors that you don't really feel, but the action of those behaviors can actually change your brain to make you think more like that. So, for example, if I smile, I don't feel like smiling, it actually does help change your mood to be more positive. If I'm slouching from insecurity, but I stand upright, I actually have a release of norepinephrine and more confidence. And given the tight association between attacking children and women for men and being low status, anxious, insecure of your status, it makes perfect sense that they would orient these group of males they don't feel they can bamboozle, I'm your leader, into focusing on attacking them in a mind fuck where they're engendering their own inferiority, their own weakness, their own security, and then trying to obtain it through abusing girls and women. And you see them subjecting any minority groups they're threatened by, like Islamic groups, Islamic people in the West, to this. Like I said, I'm 90% sure the grooming gangs were M16 shit. When you really look, well, they just kept getting away. You're telling me like Muhammad the cab driver is such a crafty criminal. We know they do this. They did it with Manson. Manson was an inept criminal and suddenly became untouchable. If he did get arrested, he was out the next day. The grooming gangs have the same fucking characteristics. And when you look also like what they were doing to dismantle Islamicism in the world and making ISIS after the Iraq War, and a feature of ISIS was recruiting online, especially from Western countries like the UK. what they were doing with the grooming gangs, like orienting any threatening Islamist sentiment towards abusing little kids, is totally in their lane. And they did the same thing with ISIS. Take the Islamic sentiment in the Middle East, you're scared could be targeted to Israel or you, and oriented children and women abusing them. And the piece, when men attack women, it comes from a place of status inferiority, not confidence. It would make sense why they would also do that. So in addition to being a decoy from focusing on them while feeling delusionally powerful, they're kind of engendering, I'm inferior, that's why I'm fucking with women. On a primal level. And what's interesting is we can see the CIA, M16, Mossad, KGB also did the same thing to males given particular high status with the Epstein plot. We can see the same exact shit where what do we world famous men do? Why we attack women and children. And you could see how if you're the intelligence community and the highest people, you would want to sucker in these very powerful men to thinking the act of a Russian peasant who's got no fucking food after World War II is the highest, most status act. And they're mind fucked into this, where it's like, we're raping little kids. This is nothing. This means nothing, but we're all doing it and calling it like the highest, most powerful act. When we know for a fact it's not, it's the opposite. Imagine the effect that has subconsciously on these people, these powerful dudes. It's sending a message, you are not powerful. That's why you're gaining power attacking a 12-year-old. You're weak. Everything you have comes through us. That's what they're being told over and over again when they were made to do these acts. And of course, they're not gonna walk into the party of Epstein and be like, "Welcome to the club where you all have to rape kids, and we're secretly humiliating you. Like you're all laughing and drinking champagne, you feel powerful, but you can't evade the fact you're doing a loathsome, lowly act, and you kind of feel like you have to do it because you're all bouncing off each other's good." And it's important and it makes you feel important, but it's truly a low act, right? And I think the CIA, the M16, all these intelligence cooked this up because of the solid data that abuse towards children and women is like a mind fuck to a man. Like you're a low piece of shit, right? And they're telling themselves on the top layer that we're so powerful we can do anything, but inside their souls, they're engendering, I'm actually a weak piece of shit. Without these people, I'm nothing. So you end up with like the CEO of Microsoft being told, like, on a subconscious level, without us, you're nothing. Like, you're just a child raping, weak piece of shit. You're the richest dude in the world, and this is what you're doing. And like I said, they have data on this. Abuse of women and children goes up in a low status. It's not high status. Low. The more insecure a man is of his status and place, the more he's likely to rape and abuse women and children. So what better way to mind fuck and make them soft than have them bond as powerful world leaders over the act a Russian peasant would do if you don't have enough food? Like, this is what powerful men do. And I'm sure it wasn't always like that. This shit they cooked up after the CIA got good sometime in the 80s and 90s. So not only are they dealing with the blackmail, but their high-level agents are getting them to accept the act of a low degenerate is the highest act. And they have to just engender this, and they all agree with it. Everyone in the club is doing it and saying it, but on a psychological level, they walk away feeling controlled, feeling weak, feeling insecure of their power. And that makes them much more pliable. A lot of power is psyching people out. Like in boxing matches, the reason they trash talk is it does psych out the opponent, right? So if you're a system and you want to control people in the system who have power, like Bill Gates, what better way than to make plots where you're doing low acts, everyone around you saying it's an elite act, everyone around you saying, hi, people like us do this, but it's actually the lowest act on earth. You're torturing children, right? You're torturing little girls. Um, Even if the superficial veneer is, Epstein is such a great guy, he puts on a good show at his parties, and there's girls, they walk away knowing, like, I just did a low act, right? No matter what they're saying with the words, the psychology is saying you're a low, insecure, powerless bitch. So not only is that a leverage in dealing with them later, like, you're a low bitch. We saw what you did. While you were all saying it's the highest, most powerful act of elite, you were like doing what Russian peasants do on the food, or like some drunk ass poor bitch after his team loses. You just attacked women and children. Low. While they're superficially saying hi, but they can't evade the psychology of knowing it's actually low. So imagine how much help that psych out, just like Muhammad Ali trash talking before a fight, how much leverage that gives them when I need you to do something. Like, okay, I'll do it. Like, it helps, right? Just as much as the frank blackmail after they did the low act will tell the world you did this low act. Plus the internal knowledge, I don't really have power. They have power. I'm their bitch. I depend on them. That's why I'm doing this low, crass shit. But we're all superficially saying it's the highest act of world leaders to do this. And then if you don't believe me that it was done to attack the self-image of these elites let in the club, specifically the ones who they let in, like people like Bill Gates and Bill Clinton, they literally made Trump fuck Bill Clinton, right? Like a rapper or something. Like, in addition to like encouraging them to rape kids and saying it's the highest, most elite act, it's actually the lowest act of a man, an insecure, weak, pussy man with no power. They also made them fuck each other, right? So you have Epstein laughing. I thought I had Turris, the Yiddish word for problems. Like, Putin's got them pictures of Trump fucking Bill Clinton. They do a lot of mental attacks to make you easy to control, and they do this to the elites just as much, right? Ironically, the one group in America that is less controlled with attacks of identity, of power, of worth is poor whites. And instead, they do this 180 and they're like, you're the best, and you're just like Trump, also the best. But like minorities, who they don't think they can fool that way, like, guess what? Trump's just like you. Elon Musk is like you. They don't think that's going to work because the system has traditionally been against them. Um, and very, very, very elite men who were recently led into the cult, they control them in a similar way. Like, you know what? Raping kids is actually the highest, most elite act. And if you rape each other, it's also a high elite act. And you imagine how that fucks your mind up? You walk away like, yeah, I'm behaving like a lowly criminal. And also, I had to fuck Bill Clinton. Like how it makes you reinforces you're nothing without this given to you power. Like, it's effective because on the top layer you feel powerful, you're getting away with these crimes, but in the bottom layer it's like the internal psychological layer. It's like, I'm a lowly piece of shit. I know I am. Like, trash does this. Trash. And that's why they do it. It's not because they believe in state, and they tell you that they're Satanists, and they tell you that this is all ritual, to balance good and evil, whatever the fuck they're telling you. The real reason is they're trying to break your mind out, right? Same reason Muhammad Ali would insult his opponent, right? So that when he's fighting, he's a little nervous. And that's why the CIA agents, the M16 agents, the Mossad agents, the KGB agents, when they're trying to control people, they tell them they're great. What, like, oh yeah, you're getting power this way. everything about what they're asking you to do is to attack yourself and your truly belief in how much power you have outside of them. In addition to frank blackmail material. And I made a long video, but long story short, I think this is why they don't pay attention to the slur of boy. Because a lot of how the CIA controls people, minority groups, and even the ultra elite is by making them anxious and insecure of their worth, their equality to them. And they do it so subconsciously and so deftly. And sometimes it's packaged in a veneer of we're helping you, we're special together, we're elite together, that you can't clock. It's really asking you to eat a shit sandwich that you're a piece of garbage without them, right? That's really what you're eating, what you're accepting, what you're agreeing to, what you're signing to, is that you are shit without them, right? And they design these things on purpose. And I think this is like, I don't know when they invented the Satanism thing, which became the piggyback for these mind-breaking exercises that they don't clock and they get suckered into, but it works and it weakens them down and it makes them feel like they're just slaves and they have to obey. But I'm sure those things occur together, realizing the utility of controlling men with sexual violence and attacking children. At the same time, they realize they can make and control their CIA occult better if they make them think they're in a special group of Satanists. But it became a gateway to do these mind-bending exercises where they're just broken down and easy to control. And interestingly, this is also how they control minority groups who don't have power. And they use this strategy whenever they think they can't bamboozle you, we're on the same side. In the case of ultra elite orbiters in the cult at a high level, they know that they can get the thought in their head, I don't need you. I'm the CEO of Microsoft. I don't need you. They know that thought can pop in their head. And also people without power, minority groups subject to oppression because there's no way to fool them. These people represent them, right? So they use those two strategies, very similar, and they use it whenever they can't use a strategy. I represent you, which they can really only pull on poor white trash. Poor white trash and lower orbiters of the cult, where they start to delusionally think they're like them. So you see them use that strategy on white trash and on really peripheral orbiters. They're not subjected to the mind-bending exercises the high-level ones are, where they are given enough power by the system, they can get the thought, I don't need this system, I could change the system. They use the I love you and you're special and chosen bullshit on white trash and the lowest orbiters who will never see the inside of a CIA mind ops like that intense, like an Epstein party. Like the ones on the very outest skirts, then they make them feel like we're on the same team. I represent you, the same way they do white trash. But the ones where they give enough power that if they lose control of them, they could be a threat because of their money and their influence and their voice, they are subjected to this mind-bending exercise. Like, you're going to rape kids, and because you're so powerful, you're going to rape kids, and you're also going to fuck each other. And it's because you're such a powerful guy, you're going to fuck each other. And they walk away like, as if they just got shouted down by Muhammad Ali, who's going to kick your fucking ass next week. While also having blackmail. And it's interesting to think how they use a strategy on these people they don't think they control with delusions we're the same, that's going to work, where they know they're different. And in the case of the very powerful, they could get the idea in their head, I don't need these motherfuckers, and I'm going to change the system. Or the very bottom, where they also want to change the system and rebel against them. That's how they use these strategies. And that's why they never talk about boy, because that leads to an avenue of what the slur was used for and how they're still doing it today. They want you focusing on the hard R and shit.